Hello, this is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a review of this monstrosity, the 60 CD Academy of St. Martin in the Fields 60th anniversary extraordinary box of stuff. Now, when this came out a few months ago, it was billed as more than Amadeus, which really sort of puzzled me because I never thought of these people in association with Mozart or Amadeus. I mean, specifically, right? Well, yes, indeed, they did make the Amadeus soundtrack. And as the booklet note by Lady Sir Neville tells us, the royalties from that recording apparently have considerably enhanced the orchestra's bottom line. Now, the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields has been such an institution for so long that we tend not to think about it, but it really was the invention of Neville Marriner and his family that basically ran it for many, many decades before it became a more independent entity. One of the things that always puzzled me as a foreigner living on this side of the pond across the ocean is where St. Martin in the Fields was. I always had this idea, why would they put an orchestra in a church? I mean, I knew it was a church that was like sitting in a field. Well, it's not in a field. It happens to be, as all of my British viewers will tell me, on one corner of Trafalgar Square in the very center of London. So what St. Martin was doing in the Fields, we have no idea. I did look into it, and it turns out that the Martin is Saint Martin of Tours, the French saint who lived in the 4th century. And what he was doing in the Fields, nobody knows. All we know is that there are French churches called Saint Martin des Champs, of the Fields. He hung around in fields. It may have been fields of battle, possibly, because he was supposed to be in the military and reputedly wouldn't fight, and then he became a monk, and then a hermit, and then I don't know. We don't need to go into that. But the church in Trafalgar Square is St. Martin in the Fields, and that's where these guys started playing and got their name. Now, they did do, as I said, the soundtrack to Amadeus, which, impressed me not at all, but apparently the rest of the world was dazzled. And it gave them an international reputation in the 80s that they would never otherwise have had. And it's fascinating what that kind of popularity will do. So this disc contains 60 CDs, and we're going to go through them. So brace yourself, folks, because the lid is coming off the box, and the first stack is coming out here, and here we're gonna go. CD number 1. All right. Now, as you know, the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields is famous for recording lots and lots of unusual Baroque music that we'd never heard before, and that hadn't been recorded before initially. Now it's not quite as interesting to us as we used to, because there are billions of performances of this stuff on period instrument, ensembles. But I think it's worth pointing out that the aesthetics of this group were, to create a crack chamber orchestra that played this repertoire on modern instruments as beautifully and idiomatically as it positively could. And I have to tell you, I really believe that's still a perfectly valid approach to this music. I know we all want to hear this stuff on period instruments, but there's a lot to be said for hearing snappy, excellent performances played to the highest modern standards on highest modern instruments, because music is music. And however musically it's played, it's got to sound good, right? Anyway, so it began, here is the early recordings, which is 2 CDs full of stuff by, little concerti grossi and things by Corelli, Torelli, Locatelli, Albicastro, Handel, Manfredini, Albinoni, Cherubini, Avicen, Telemann, Vivaldi, Gemignani, Bellini, and Corelli. And I think that's all we need to know. I can't believe I got through that well. Okay, so that's number 1. And down it goes. Number 2, the Four Seasons, twice. Lovely, who cares? You see, back in the day, that was a huge seller, and we did care. Now, God, the Four Seasons, right? Then there's some more Vivaldi concertos, which are lovely, and then more Vivaldi concertos, which are still lovely because they're still Vivaldi. Gemignani, 6 Concerti Grossi Opus 7. This is a disc still worth having. It's excellent. The music is fun, and I have to tell you my Gemignani story. It gives me an excuse. When I was in college, I met these 2 obnoxious, snotty Baroque music people who came over to my apartment because they were lured there by my record collection, and they took a look at it, and they oohed and awed over it. And by then, remember, it was still all LPs. This was in the early 80s. And they wanted to hear something. And I said, well, what would you like to play? And they said, oh, we would love to hear some Gemignani. Well, I had the entire Philips Leibniz Baroque series. I had all this other stuff. I didn't have any Gemignani. I couldn't find a single thing by Gemignani. I didn't have this record of Gemignani. I didn't have it. Oh, it was terrible. And they were so snotty about it. They're like, yeah, we just have to hear some Gemignani. Yes, indeed. So I said, great. I have just the thing. So I took out a disc of Locatelli that I had, and I stuck it on, and we were in different rooms. The music was in the other room, so they didn't see the disc, right? So I walked out, I put it on, and I said to them, isn't Gemignani just wonderful? And they said, oh, yes, we love Gemignani. And I just smiled to myself and never saw them again. So that's Gemignani. Baroque trumpet concertos. Yeah, all right. Telemann, violin concertos, along with his overture in C major, the fabulous Hamburger Ebb und Flut, the river thing where it floods and does things. Then we have Handel Concerti Grossi, Opus 3 with the Alcina incidental music, and Opus 6, which was sort of an Academy of St. Martin in the Fields specialty. They recorded it a couple times. The performances are lovely. They always were. They always will be. And that gets us through the first 10 or so discs. Now, the next pile. Oh, God, here we go. Alrighty, let's see what we have here. Bach. Keyboard concertos with Murray Pariah. By the way, some of this stuff was licensed from Sony, which was nice of them to do that so that they could have all of this material. These are gorgeous. The keyboard concertos with Murray Pariah are first class, no question about it. Then we have Bach violin concertos and some transcriptions of things with Julia Fischer and Alexander Sitkovetsky. Those are with Julia Fischer directing. Not bad, huh? And those are fine. Let's face it. This Baroque music, it's not hard to play. I mean, for modern instrumentalists, they can all do it, and it doesn't involve much interpretation either, because in each movement you set a tempo and you let it go. And while people might nitpick over things like ornamentation or whether you're using period instruments or modern instruments, I mean, the performances are all going to be fine. Past a certain level, it just doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, folks. I tell you truthfully, one of the reasons that the period instrument movement was such a hit is because it was one of the few things you could do to make this music sound different, to characterize it in some way, right? And so now we have 2 different characterizations of the music, and they are what they are. Then we have, look at this. This is a good disc. The Art of Fugue, arranged for lots of instruments, and the Musical Offering. I think this is a wonderful disc, by the way, because those are works which, need to be orchestrated imaginatively and beautifully played, and there they are with Neville Marriner. Then we get Arne, good old Arne. He wrote a harpsichord concerto, an overture, and C.P.E. Bach. His variations on La Folia, Le Folie d'Espagne, and his harpsichord concerto in C minor, and Johann Christian Bach, his harpsichord concerto with George Malcolm and Neville Marriner. Remember that? That's a really good disc too. And Johann Christian Bach, his 6 symphonies, Opus 1. Another disc still worth having, absolutely first rate, and not done to death. Then we've got, remember, the Pergolesi Concerti Grossi that weren't by Pergolesi? The Concerti Armonici by Wassenaer, who they thought was Pergolesi. This was the one I got. I mean, because you couldn't find them so easily, and we had that one. Baroque horn concertos. Well, they sound Baroque and horn-like. Yes. Gluck, the Don Juan Ballet, the whole thing. This is really worth having. There aren't so many recordings of it. There are a couple on period instruments. Bruno Weil did one. John Elliott Gardner did one. The Don Juan Ballet is wonderful. It has the original version of the Dance of the Furies. You know, I mean, that's really exciting. The world's first piece of horror movie music. And in addition to the Gluck, there's ballet music from Ariodante and Il Pastor Fido by Handel. Haydn cello concertos, the trumpet concerto, and the harpsichord concerto with Heinrich Schiff. Great stuff, my friends. Haydn, oh, this is an interesting disc. You get an overture in D major, a Cid and Galatea overture, some dances that he did, 6 German dances, and then his organ concerto and 2 horn concertos with Barry Tuckwell, Simon Preston, and George Malcolm. These are, it's like a trip down memory lane. These were really, really fine discs. And that was the cat flying around chasing a little mouse toy thing, which he's really gotten into. Must be the catnip I stuck in them. Haydn symphonies, let's see, 53, 99, and 102. Now, I personally find Mariner's Haydn to be kind of dull and flat-footed when he does the symphonies. I think they just need more oomph, and I still feel that way. Michael, I remember he did that disc of Phillips of all those Haydn name symphonies. That's where some of that probably came from. And they were good. They're good. They're neat. They're clean. They're tidy. They're just not full of, shall we say, personality, because that's music that can take a little bit more than just good playing. It needs to have character behind it, and that it just doesn't have. Michael Haydn, however, his horn concerto and the duo concertante for viola and organ in C major. I mean, whoever heard? Who knew? I never saw that. All right, here we have the next pile. Oh my God, it's coming like crazy. Mozart. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of Mozart, and I think they've chosen very well from their Mozart. You've got a bunch of divertimentos and the concertone for 2 violins and orchestra, and the Serenata Notturna on this disc. Then you got the big Sinfonia Concertante in E flat major, and the Sinfonia Concertante in E flat major 164. This and the Adagio in Fugue in C minor. That's not the Sinfonia Concertante for violin and viola. These are the ones that include like oboes, clarinets, bassoons, and other things. Right? More Mozart, Eine kleine Nachtmusik, the Post-Horn Serenade, and another Serenata Notturna, because why should you have just one? I mean, when you can have 2. Then we've got the Grand Partita, yay, and the Divertimento in C major. Excellently done, both of them. Yes, Beethoven, thank God, minuets, German dances, contra dances, and the Grosse Fuga. That's actually a nice disc, because it's not the usual stuff. And because, okay, here we go. Because Marriner recorded a Beethoven cycle. It was a disaster. It was probably the dullest Beethoven cycle in the history of humanity. And none of it is included here. And I get the distinct impression that maybe somebody knew that, and they left it out for a reason. But you do get Symphonies 4 and 7 with Joshua Bell, which came, I think, from Sony. And I didn't care then, and I don't care now. Weber's clarinet concertos and the concertino for clarinet with Andrew Marriner. Sound familiar? A family affair, I think we've got going here. The complete 3-disc Rossini overtures, remember that? And here again, this was music that was neat and tidy and well played, and I thought the performances were totally faceless. They had absolutely no personality whatsoever. In spite of the good playing, in spite of the fact that the tempos were lively, you just want to laugh and smile when you hear these pieces, and there was nothing there. They were so poker-faced. Yick. Anyway, this is like a disc of little tchotchkes. Tchotchkes by Jeremiah Clark, Handel, Purcell, Rossini, Boccherini, Mozart, Haydn, Tchaikovsky, Schubert, and Mendelssohn, the Scherzo from A Midsummer Night's Dream. And you get bonus tracks from Johannes Bernardus von Brie, Unico Wilhelm von Wassenaer, that's him again, the Pergolesi guy, and Locatelli. This was a tribute to Holland. I don't know what this is concert a la carte and a tribute to Holland. Who knows what that was. It's a grab bag. Mendelssohn's String Symphonies and the Concerto in A minor for piano and strings with John Ogden. Excellent. Back to the good stuff. Mendelssohn's Scottish and Italian symphonies with Marriner. These were good performances. They really were. No one cared about them. Probably no one still does. But they're nice. they're well done. And Mendelssohn was a good composer for Marriner because he wasn't a hard-on-sleeve, heavy-duty, heavy-breathing romantic, which was not Mariner's thing either. The Gounod symphonies and the Faust ballet music, fun record, delicious playing, wonderful to hear. The Dvorak 2 serenades. This is one of the reference recordings for that. They are superb performances, especially the Wind Serenade. I mean, you'd think like the strings would be the one to get, but this is one of the great recordings of the Wind Serenade. It is wonderful, and the sonics are wonderful. Something happened. They all just caught fire, that disc. Really, they did. Tchaikovsky, the Nutcracker Suite, the Serenade for Strings, the Violin Concerto with Leila Josefowitz. Next. This one was terrific. The Grieg Holberg Suite, Elegiac Melodies, Sibelius Valse Trise, the Nielsen Little Suite, the Dagviren Serenade, Sibelius Rakastava. This was a great disc. It still is. Wonderful stuff. Definitely worth hearing. Last pile, folks. Hang in there. We're getting there. The Bruch Violin Concerto No. 1 in Mendelssohn Concerto with Joshua Bell conducting and playing the violin. Okay, next. I mean, it's okay. It's fine. So what? Strauss, Le Bourgeois Gentilhomme, and the Dance Suite after Couperin. An excellent disc. And the Dance Suite after Couperin is a wonderful rarity. You don't hear it very often. Another Bruch, Scottish Fantasy and Violin Concerto No. 1. Again? Am I with Joshua Bell doing this again? What do you do it for 2 labels? I guess so. I don't know. I don't understand what that's there for. Okay. Oh my goodness. This is the French Connection, or the French Correction, the French something. It's Berlioz, Hungarian March, Ravel, Pavane, Dukas, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Danse Macabre by Saint-Saëns, The Afternoon of a Faun, the Chabrier Joyeuse March, the Canteleu Baillero, sung by Carita Matila, Satie Gymnopédie, the Forêt Pavane, and Dolly Suite. This was like, we're running out of repertoire for the Academy to play, so why don't they do some French things? And they did, and I don't, it was wants to be one of their last recordings for Philips. Did anyone notice that? I don't remember it at all. I don't think I ever heard it. And here it is. I've been waiting for this. The reissue of the worst recording ever that Marriner ever made. Respighi, the Roman Trilogy, Pines, Fountains, Festivals, and a very good The Birds, as if we care. Because the 3 big tone poems are the most awful, underplayed, characterless, least colorful, and even badly recorded. I mean, they suck. They suck in every possible way that you can suck. They suck and blow. Yeah, you know what I mean? It goes both ways, the misery. Now, why is that? It's very interesting. Marriner had no ability to do these big romantic works. He just didn't. He made all those recordings, remember, for Capriccio in Stuttgart, and he did a bunch in Minnesota, and they were lousy. Just lousy. It wasn't his thing. And, much as he probably enjoyed doing them and showing just how charmless and characterless that music could sound, there's no reason to hear any of that stuff. The Respighi tone poems, we always take them for granted because they're unfailing blockbusters. Wrong! They can fail. And we have Marriner to thank for the fact that he demonstrates that music does need a degree of dash and verve and character and balls and vulgarity and bigness of conception that was completely, there we go. See, I was getting so excited I knocked the cover over. That was just alien to his character. Let's not kid ourselves. It was. And so that one signal failure, and the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields, I mean, what did they have to hire every musician in London to build themselves up to make this recording? What a disaster. What a total, complete, utter miscalculation. And I'm so happy they did it. All right, finally. The Bartók, music for strings, percussion, and celesta, and divertimento. First class, one of the great recordings of both works. And it just goes to show what Marriner could do in contemporary music that was not Respighi. It was not big and huge, but that was chambery and intimate, and that required all of the precision and detail and and finish that he really made his own, the qualities, that really real qualities that he had as an interpreter. And similarly, Stravinsky, the Pulcinella Suite, Apollon Musicette, and the Capriccio with John Ogden, another first-class disc. Although they also did, remember, the Shostakovich First Concerto with Ogden, but that's not on this. They left that off this collection. Okay, string music. The Elgar stuff, Introduction to Allegro, Serenade, blah, blah, blah. Peter Warlock, the Capriol Suite and Serenade for Strings, and Butterworth, the Shropshire Lad and English Idol, The Banks of the Green Willow. All of these English music discs were really pretty lovely. They really were. Then we got the Delius one, the Cuckoo, the Intermezzo, the Song Before Sunrise, Summer Night on the River, Air and Dance, La Calinda, because you've always got to whip out La Calinda when you have a minute. The Walk to the Paradise Garden, 2 pieces for cello and chamber orchestra, a Holst's Invocation, Elgar's Romance, and the Vaughan Williams Oboe Concerto, a very well-filled disc, extraordinarily well done. Then Vaughan Williams, the Wasps, the Tallis Fantasia, the Fen Country, the Variations for Orchestra, the Norfolk Rhapsody, the 5 variants of Dives and Lazarus, and the reason for owning the disc, the Romance for Harmonica, played by Terry Riley. I have never gotten into Marriner's version of the Tallis Fantasia. I think, again, it's a big romantic work that requires a bigness and lushness of sound and texture that just wasn't his way of doing it. I mean, his tempo is too quick, and the sound of the Academy, which is obviously very good. I mean, they're all in tune, they play together, but it just doesn't have that warmth and that big gushing, the way Barbaroli, the head gusher of all conductors in the universe, the way he could do it, for example, or Silvestri, or, you know what I mean. I don't need to go into this. More Vaughan Williams, the Lark Ascending, Fantasia on Greensleeves, Concerto Grosso, English Folk Song Suite, and then a whole bunch of folk song arrangements by various people. There you go. It's very nice. That's very nice, especially the Lark Ascending, which could stand to be faster than anyone else does it. It's so annoying when it's taken too slowly. And more. This is the Four Seasons, British style, English Seasons it's called. There they are. I thought there was only one English season, dismal and rainy. Well, okay, I guess there are more. On hearing the first Cuckoo in Spring, Enter Spring by Bridge. Fabulous work, fabulous performance. John Folds, April, England. Bridge's Summer, fabulous performance, fabulous work. These bridge tone poems are great, and no one ever does them. It's a tragedy. Granger's Harvest Hymn, and Arnold Bax's November Woods. Interesting, huh? Frankly, that could also use a bigger sound than we get here, but it's not bad. And then Bridge's Christmas Dance, Sir Roger de Coverley. Remember that? Okay, Finzi, the Clarinet Concerto, which is fabulous, with Andrew Marriner again. The Romance for String Orchestra, the Nocturne Opus 7, his New Year music. And Dies Natalis, the Cantata, with Ian Bostridge. This is a fabulous disc, and there isn't enough Finzi out there, and he was a wonderful composer. And then we get Tippett, the Fantasia Concertante, the Little Music, the Concerto for Double String Orchestra, and then the William Walton Facade Suites. Now, the Concerto for Double String Orchestra, the best performance of that, as we all know, was Rudolf Baruchai's first one. He redid it digitally. It was a little heavier. His first non-digital one. And that was the one to get. But this is quite good, too. It really is. It's a wonderful work. Here's a novelty. Robert Tier, tenor, does Mahler's Songs of a Wayfarer, the first time on CD, and there's probably a reason for that. And the Britten Nocturne and the Variations on Frank Bridge, excellent, first rate, no problem. And the Mahler is kind of a curiosity, a very curious curiosity. And finally, almost finally, Malcolm Williamson, The Happy Prince, the full opera by Malcolm Williamson, and the William Walton Sonata for String Orchestra. Now, there's a novelty. There's no libretto. You have no idea what they're singing about, and you probably won't care. Finally, this is Sir Neville's last recording. That's not Sir Neville, by the way. I was going to say, there he is after the operation. No. That's Ernest Sporenberg. It's doing Exultate Jubilate, the Clarinet Concerto, and the Piano Concerto number 21, all by Mozart. And this is billed as Neville Mariner's last recording. I have no idea what that means particularly. Maybe his last recording for Argo? It's on Argo. I don't know. Anyway, okay. So, folks, that is, believe it or not, we've just run through 60 recordings. And I am very proud of you for staying with me for the entire process. I got to tell you, all in all, I'm going to put these away while we're chatting here because it just gives me something exciting to do while we talk. This is a really, really well-chosen collection. It really is. It's a very honestly chosen collection. It really does give you the full range of what they did, good and bad. I'm not sure what anyone thought of that ghastly Respighi, but the fact of the matter is, looking back on it and taking into account everything that we find here, what an extraordinary thing Neville Marriner created, didn't he? I mean, the discography of the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields is not only of remarkably consistent and fine quality, it truly, truly is, but it represents an epoch in the record industry when there was still lots and lots of music that needed to be recorded, that hadn't been recorded at that level, that benefited from being presented in this way, that became established in the repertoire as classics because of Neville Marriner and the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields. There truly was more than Amadeus here. And I think going back on this collection, what I'm really struck by is just how well they did so much of what they did. I mean, we just have to acknowledge that. Toward the end of his career and in the 90s when records were coming out like crazy and the whole industry was self-destructing, we took them for granted. We really did. We said, oh, God, it's another, Neville Marriner disc. It was on Philips, then they were on Hensler, then they were on Decca, they were on Argo. They were all over the place. They became ubiquitous. They became wallpaper. We stopped paying attention. Well, I got to tell you something. This 60-disc series contains as much fine music making as you will see anywhere by anybody. And that's the truth. That's just the God's honest truth. They were a wonderful, wonderful group. They still are. They deserve their acclaim. They deserve to be an English institution, indeed a world institution. They probably brought more music and more happiness to more people than any other, certainly chamber orchestra of the day. And that is an epic achievement, and I really believe we should celebrate it. I truly, truly do. And this is an extremely well-chosen and smart way to do it. That's the bottom line. So keep on listening, folks. Thank you for joining me for this review. Take care.